A very good evening to everybody and welcome to this next in our live stream series, Music Revival Online. This is Christopher Duigan coming to you from our home in KwaZulu-Natal. This is Saturday the 26th of June. It has just gone 6 p.m. and we hope you are watching live. We're hoping you are joining us now live on YouTube and on Facebook and on various channels. We've had a few issues with our streams in the last week. Some internet connection issues this time, not the computer, but in fact just internet in the region generally. And I hope that everything is going all right. Barry, everything functioning okay?
Yeah, it looks good.
Stream functioning right. Looks like we've got a different connection tonight and we're going out okay. So I hope you can join us for the next hour or so. This is our in-concert Saturday session. And tonight is a program which I put together called Concert Classics. And I've chosen a rather standard, straightforward, quite easygoing and I think rather comforting and beautiful selection of music. Last Saturday I played an all Beethoven program and that was a discussion, a little bit of an insight into why I think Beethoven is such an important composer. And it was very intense music and rather extended, which was very well received. It was always great to have that, but I thought now let's have something different and let's go back to some of the more recognizable, positive concert classics that everyone knows and a bit more of an easygoing program. So I'm going to be playing music by Handel, Mozart, Schubert, Liszt, Chopin, Rachmaninov for you this evening. And I'm going to be playing the pieces in pairs because each of them I think are interesting coupling that demonstrate different ideas. I'm going to start off with Handel's Harmonious Blacksmith. This is from the keyboard suite number 5 in E major. And this is the last movement, and the name comes from a title, nothing to do with Handel himself, but a music publisher in 19th century England decided that if he gave this title a rather fanciful title and story, it would sell more copies, which it did. And the story was that Handel was in London and walking around London in a very fine afternoon when suddenly a storm broke and he rushed down an alleyway and found shelter in a blacksmith's foundry, I think is the correct word, and came across this blacksmith whistling away and singing this rather charming melody, which Handel was rather taken by and was quite entranced by the whole scene. And so he rushed home and wrote this down and then subsequently wrote a series of variations around it. In other words, the melody is kind of repeated, or the structure, the framework of the melody is repeated again and again as it builds in intensity. The second piece I'd like to play for you then is Fantasia in D minor by Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. Fantasy being a freedom of emotion and a freedom of ideas. And the reason why these two pieces are so interesting in terms of their contrasts is that the Handel is so fixated on the same idea, repeating again and again and again. It builds in its frenetic activity around the same pulse, the same rhythm. The same concept is focused in intensely, repeatedly, whereas in the Mozart, the fantasy is a completely contrasted idea where there are completely disparate and random ideas almost that almost have very little link to each other, from very brooding chords, very melancholic, heartfelt moments, scale passage up and down the keyboard, and then eventually Mozart comes to a very rather jubilant and uplifting melody at the end. So as opposed to one single idea of the Handel, Mozart is including in a fantasy many different contrasting ideas that don't necessarily relate to each other in any real logical way. And Lucy knows all about that, and we're going to have a good chat to Lucy in a moment. So this is Handel's Harmonious Blacksmith variation and the Fantasy in D minor by Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. That was the Fantasia in D minor, or the Fantasy in D minor by Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. Interestingly enough, Mozart actually did not complete the composition. The last 8 bars he just left out, and it was left up to one of his students to either suggested or somehow thought, or maybe have been told by Mozart, or just decided, in fact, that that's how the piece should end, which does make sense. It sort of seems to be quite logical. But interestingly, that's always the version that we generally play, even though those last 8 bars were not completely Mozart's. They were part of the piece, and it was just figured out that that's the way it might end. Now, this evening we have, if you are looking at the backdrop to what I have behind me, as usual, you'll notice there is a change. This morning I was visited by friends of mine, and I was very generously gifted this beautiful artwork, which you'll see behind me, which is by the Sudanese-born artist Hussein Salim, who is resident in this part of the world, Peter Maritzburg. He's been here for a number of years, and it was gifted by very good friends of mine, and I'm very, very grateful to all of them for this wonderful artwork. You will see it during the stream this evening, and as well as a number of his other artworks, which you'll see around the day called the setup tonight. And this particular piece is rather magnificent. You will see it in its entirety later on, and it fits into the general ambience here quite beautifully. In fact, I think there's a little secret inspiration behind some of the scenes and some of the live stream that actually might have been viewed by the artists themselves, or himself at least, in the last year or so. So I'd like to continue this evening with a number of compositions by Schubert and Liszt next on our musical menu tonight. I'm going to play for you the beautiful Impromptu in G-flat, the third of the Impromptus from the first set that Schubert wrote. This is a rather magnificent piece of music that is very hymn-like. It has this beautiful sustained hymn-like texture to it, with these very gentle rolling chords in the inner voices. And the second piece of music which I've tried to play and I enjoyed tackling again and again by Franz Liszt, Un Sospiro, or a sigh, one of his concert etudes. And again, in this composition, this is also very hymn-like in its beginning. It has this beautiful sustained melody. The piano has a beautiful radiant sound. But as opposed to the Schubert, which is quite self-contained, and the mood of the Schubert seems to be very much subtly changed in its hues and colorations that it undertakes. The Liszt, being Liszt, as he always is a lot more dramatic and goes through some quite dramatic changes as the hymn expands and moves into grand climaxes, cascades of color and sound, thunderous bass lines, and generally quite an adventure. The sigh obviously coming out from the end of the phrases. You can hear him as he number of times in the piece, Liszt ends a phrase like that, and I think this is the element of the Sospiro, the sigh that he is referring to. So this is the Impromptu in G-flat by Franz Schubert and Un Sospiro by Franz Liszt. That, of course, Liszt's Un Sospiro, a sigh, the concert Etude, one of his most famous pieces, and before that, the Impromptu in G-flat, number 3 from the first set of 4 Impromptu by Franz Schubert. No matter how many times I've played that Liszt, there's always a part in it somewhere. It keeps shifting as to where I get completely muddled and all this back and forward and over hands, and then suddenly it's like which hand is playing the melody and which isn't. I don't quite know what to say. It keeps absolutely the most puzzling piece of music. I don't know if there's anyone else, pianist, who's played that piece of music who've had similar problems or that feeling of just folding in the middle of the phrase. It's rather unpleasant. Anyway, but it was a beautiful piece, and I hope you enjoyed that. Un Sospiro by Franz Liszt. I'm going to continue with music by Frédéric Chopin, and I've been thinking a lot about Chopin's music, always exploring, and just the more one explores, the more one sees, the more one plays of any composer's repertoire, the more one discovers. And I realized recently, this week in fact, how unique Chopin's compositions are in terms of how he titles them. And even though he writes a number of short pieces, he gives names like nocturnes and waltzes and mazurkas and preludes. Actually, each specific genre or each specific name really does encapsulate or really does tie together a certain style I'm starting to see. That waltzes really do have a unique sense of the waltz to them, quite different to the mazurkas, for instance, or anything else, the etudes, or anything that might even be in a similar rhythm. And so I'd like to play for you 2 of these waltzes, very contrasting, the first of which is an A minor, a very plaintive piece, which has this very haunting refrain in the left hand, and even more unusual about it, apart from its very simple construction, at the end of the piece, the left hand then brings about a very beautiful melody, an extended melody, just when you think the piece is going to end. The second piece then, the Grande Valse, Opus 18, Grande Valse Brillante, piece of music that I've played many times, but it really has something quite unique. And yes, Lucy, I've played it too often, but I think it's going to fit this evening's program quite well. Let's say hello to Lucy. Lucy, do you think that I have played the Grande Valse Brillante too many times? Hands up who says yes. Do you think so? Do you be tired of it? You think I should play some of the others? Do you think there's lots of music that you know? And why do I always play the same waltz? Because I like it, Lucy, that's why. Lucy, what did you do today? Nothing. Just absolutely nothing. You lay in the bed with someone the whole day, and then lay in the sun, and then had a good snooze and had dinner, and now you're just lying in the basket. You go in your little basket. There we go. And Luce, Freddie Pop, I'm going to speak to you later on. Okay, so here we go. Here are 2 waltzes in A minor and in E flat from Frédéric Chopin. That, of course, was the Waltz, Grande, Valse, Brillante by Frédéric Chopin in E-flat, opus 18, the first of his published waltzes, and before that the waltz in A minor, opus 34, number 2. So I hope you're enjoying this selection of standard classics, popular classics that have brilliance, that have very defined moods, beauty, great melodies, yes, even Lucy's approving, and a selection of really, I think, really lovely and wonderful music for our Saturday evening stream. I'm going to end off this evening's program with a selection of two pieces by Sergei Rachmaninov. First of all, I'm going to play the Etude-Tableaux. These are pieces of music designed to explore pianist technique, but also, that's the etude part, but also to paint a picture, that's the tableau part. So a piece of music that is not only a technical exercise, or not just a technical exercise, but actually a very poetic image and a poetic painting. And in this particular piece, Rachmaninov was never always, or very seldom, gave many clues as to what the inspiration behind these pieces are. But I certainly think that this particular one has a very barren landscape of cold, of snow and ice, a very distant scene. Lucy, which one do you think I should play? The big one at the end. Okay, well, maybe we'll add that one in. Yes, Lucy, I agree. It's a good piece. I think I should play 3 because we actually have got time. We should be finishing by 7 o'clock, and these are short pieces. The second piece I'd like to play is a very celebrated Prelude in G minor, and I think I've actually got the order muddled around. I can see Barry looking at me. So, in fact, I'm going to play the Prelude in G minor first. That's the way I put them down on those titles. Prelude in G minor from Opus 23 has a great sort of Russian military feel, I think, to it. Great rhythmic drive, and there's great ba-da-dum, ba-da-dum, ba-da-dum rhythm throughout it. And then in the midsection, a very extended and a very sustained melody. It's really one of Rachmaninoff's genius. I mean, all of his music is genius, but this is a really genius piece. And the way that he layers the melody over itself again and again and again. So this is the Rachmaninoff Prelude in G minor, followed by the Etude-Tableaux Opus 33 number 2. And I think I've been speaking to the wrong camera for the past 10 minutes or so. Anyway, and I might even play a third Rachmaninoff. Let's see how it goes. Now it has just gone 7 o'clock, so we're on time. That was to end off another of Rachmaninov's Etude-Tableaux, opus 39, number 1. Before that, the Etude-Tableaux, opus 33, number 2. And to start off that selection of Rachmaninov, the very celebrated and famous Prelude in G minor. Hope you've enjoyed that rather exuberant and flourish to the end of this evening's program of some popular classics that also included some Chopin waltzes, Schubert Impromptu, music by Handel, Mozart and Liszt. If you would like to join us on Wednesday night again, I'm playing another of the Mosaic programs where I'll be playing a number of short pieces, which I'll only let you know after I've played them, rather unique combination. And it's another in our online series. If you're able to support us, please do visit our website at the donate page. Every donation that comes through, we are very grateful. I'm very grateful for that. Thank you again to the very generous friends that I have for the gift of this beautiful artwork, which you've seen behind me. I'm sure you will know that it is going to be loved and cherished here for many, many, many years to come. And thank you to Barry at the technical team on the technical side for the support this evening, as always. And I hope that our stream has survived and not crashed at any point. And Lucy's nowhere. Lucy's rummaging around somewhere on the other side. So thank you for joining us tonight. Look forward to seeing you on Wednesday and next Saturday for some more adventurous classics in the Saturday session next week. Look after yourselves. Have a good evening. Stay well.